Another great game between Hope College and Mount St. Joseph, where Hope ends up winning at home 31-28 in a game that came down to the last play of the game. Very much similar to the last time both of these opponents played, but great play by Tate Bezeau, who was able to stop Jackson Schreiber short on a 4th and 5. You also had Liam Dannett around there, which he caused issues in the backfield all day in this game. But it was just much more than that because you had two quarterbacks that went back to back that were just super competitive. Jackson Schreiber, he did have 4 touchdowns, did throw 2 interceptions in this game, 367 yards. But then you have Alex Stoll. He went 15 for 19, 187 yards, 1 touchdown. But he was also able to use his legs a little bit more than what Jackson Schreiber did. I thought Hope did really well in the option game with Alex Stoll. You saw Hope, especially in the red zone, use that option to let Alex read the defense. Had several great reads, was able to pull the ball from either Kal Motter or A.J. Martell, and he ended up scoring an easy touchdown because of that. But this was just a really interesting game because Hope went 3 and out in their first drive. And then after that, you have Mount St. Joseph respond instantly. Long, I believe, 19-play drive that ended up putting Mount St. Joseph up 7-0 in this game. And they had complete momentum at this point, but that momentum completely switched when Hope got an offense and they just started to get involved in the run game. They were able to run between the tackles. They weren't really able to be stopped, and that was really the biggest difference of this first half, is that when Hope started to kind of get things rolling, they really truly took momentum into the second half, especially when you got the ball back. And it was a 21-7 game at that point with about like a minute 30 left. And Hope went able to go downfield and scored a touchdown with, I think, about 30, 40 some odd seconds. Now that was really possible because of a pretty big play from Johnny Rohan Blayton. He's been great this year. He was great in this game. He ended up really forcing a big play. Great pass from Axel to give Hope a chance, and then they obviously end up putting in the end zone a few plays later. But that really truly was the momentum changer. But even after halftime, you had Mount St. Joseph come out and just respond, and this Mount St. Joseph team did not go away whatsoever. Now, there was a few really great plays in the second half for Hope. You really have to point to Trenten Bolhouse. He ended up getting his first interception of the year, first of his career. In the second half, great play. Basically went up and got it. It was basically a fight between him and one of the other teammates that he had. Huge momentum stopper there. Hope did have a few chances in the second half to kind of get things going a little bit offensively. They did have one drive that ended up leading to a field goal. That field goal ended up being the biggest difference of this game. Is without that, this would have been a tied game going into overtime. But just a couple really great key players in this game that I really want to talk about. And one of those guys is Kal Motter. He was fantastic in this game. This is probably his best game of the year, if I have to be completely honest with you. 15 rushes for 74 yards, 1 touchdown, but he did it also with receiving as well. 4 receptions, 32 yards, 1 touchdown. One play that I truly think that isn't talked enough about is he had a swing pass to him that basically he hurled a guy, got into the end zone, put Hope up another touchdown. Just a great athletic play from Callan there. And then you also have A.J. Martell. He's just a really tough running back. He's just another guy from Mason that you can just really tell fits kind of the mold that Hope wants to have in players. Just physical, big, tough runners. Cal and AJ are just two different but really important running backs for this Hope team. And it was really those two that really carried Hope in the run game when they were able to run for 170 yards in this game. Now, if you look at the average, that doesn't necessarily meet their average, but it's still a really great quality game from them, especially when they hold Mount Joseph on defensively to only 79 yards rushing. Now, I know going into this game, I did talk about this Mount St. Joseph team was absolutely a pass-heavy team, and that's exactly what they were. They had a guy in Eli Ashton. He was just really, really difficult to stop. And he was a preseason All-American for a reason. Like, he had 14 receptions, 148 yards, 4 touchdowns. You also have Michael Hunkus, 11 receptions, 127 yards. And then you have Patrick Connor, 8 receptions, 58 yards. For Mount St. Joseph, it was those 3 guys, and also, obviously, the starting quarterback in Jackson Schreiber. That's just really, really difficult to stop. And I think Hope did a good job of defending in between the hashes. And I know in the broadcast they did talk about that quite a bit, of how that's exactly how they wanted to approach it, is defend it within the hashes and force Jackson to throw outside the hashes. Now, you have to give Jackson credit for being able to do that, but when Mount St. Joseph was able to get going offensively, that's exactly how they attacked Hope. They attacked Hope outside of the hashes. Now, obviously, when you are really focused on in the hashes, not allowing big plays, you might be able to give up a little bit more, and that's what Mount St. Joseph was able to do. Now, there's a couple other times where you have a guy in Eli Ashton that just went up and made a play. Like, there was one time, it was a jump ball. It was basically a 60-40 maybe ball for Hope, at least it looked like it. But when you have a guy like Eli Ashton, I truly don't think it's that. I think it's probably more of like a 70-30, 80-20 Eli Ashton versus whoever the Hope defender was. And that is no shot at the Hope defender whatsoever. I thought he was in a great position. It's just when you have a guy like Eli Ashton, that's just really, really tough to do. But like I was saying, Hope had responses every single time with key plays and key wide receivers. You have Johnny Rohan Blaine. I've already talked about him. Trevor Griffiths was great in this game. Travis Myers was great in this game. Jack Goldie had a huge reception in this game. Eli Vanderveen had his first reception of the year. You also do have a guy in Seth Lumen that absolutely doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's their H-back, doesn't get a ton of attention, doesn't get a ton of opportunities with the ball, but he's one of those guys that is just so unselfish that he's just going to continue to block. He's going to continue to make the plays. There were several times where Hope was able to run swing passes with Seth blocking, and all of those, for the most part, were extremely successful because of how good Seth was able to block. Now, if you look at just the overall quality of this game for Hope, I think there's some really great things to take away, especially from offensively. I think defensively, there was times where Hope was causing havoc in the backfield, and there's just other times when that happened, Jackson Schreiber just made a fantastic play. Like, you really have to sometimes tip your cap to him, tip your cap to Eli, tip your cap to Mount St. Joseph. And this Mount St. Joseph team did not go away whatsoever. They continued to fight back, but Hope made enough plays. They were able to continue to get the first down when they needed to, that when it came down to the end, Hope was able to win this game. And this was obviously Hope's biggest test of this year so far, and you have to give Mount St. Joseph credit for that. They're a really good team. But now they're pointed towards Alma. And I'm absolutely going to preview that game, which I'm extremely excited to preview that game. But you end up getting things done. Defensively, I think if you would ask the coaching staff, they would probably want to be a little bit better, especially in the secondary. But when you're able to force turnovers, they've already had 4 interceptions on this year. You also have to give Debri, the linebacker from DeWitt, a ton of credit. Bryce Debri, he ended up making a great interception, basically read what Jackson was going to do. I think that was his second interception of the year. Just this Hope team made enough plays in this game that they were able to get the win, and that's the most important part. And now, like I was saying a little bit ago, it's all about focusing on Alma. This is going to be your first MIAA matchup. This is going to be a matchup between the two favorites of this conference, and you end up coming out of a win in this game where you have some momentum going forward. You know that you can beat tough teams. Now it's about how you respond from this. It's about how you get better defensively. I think Hope will learn from the secondary. I think the defense stopping the run was great. I think Hope offensively was great as well. They have weapons on this team. Those weapons showed up in this game. And yeah, you have to be pretty happy overall getting the win against Mount St. Joseph. And again, another really close matchup between these two program. So absolutely good luck to Mount St. Joseph on the rest of the year. Deserve a ton of credit for this game, but really happy to see Hope end up getting the win and advancing to 3-0 on the year. And now, like I was saying earlier, on to Alma. So, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that preview. Definitely did. It was a fun game to watch. Great competitive matchup there. And, yeah, if you enjoyed this segment, hopefully you continue to watch other ones. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. There will be more Hope content coming out next week, obviously. But, yeah, great game from Hope. Great win from Hope.